welfare. You find there's a diversity of views, and that usually when government tries to implement this, it's basically representing some special interest or coalition of special interest.
But it should be in the general interest of the majority of the people in that particular country.
But the
majority of the people, and in the interest of the national economy. And obviously the government of the United States believes that it's in the interest of the national economy of America to do what it's doing and subsidize jobs.
No, the U.S. government believes that it is in the interest of those special interest groups whose campaign contributions and votes they have for to do these things to make their sectors of the economy artificially more productive and prosperous at the expense of taxpayers and at the expense of the consumers. The national interest is to protect people in their life, liberty, and honestly acquired property, and allow each of us to plan our own lives, acting in our own way, freely interacting with each other for mutual gains from trade in the marketplace. Everything else is basically smoke and mirrors for the government to use its fiscal and regulatory power to benefit some at the expense of others. It could be a majority, a coalition that makes up a majority. Then they're just plundering and mismanaging and harming a minority.
Dr. Ebeling, one of the issues right now dealing with on the subject of national interest is the Democrats believe that the rich are not being taxed enough. And because the rich are not being taxed enough, that is part of the economic problem of the U.S. Do you share that view?
Absolutely not. In fact, the people who are
I know you don't share that view.
Why don't you share that view?
Well, for the simple
why should the poor man in Harlem pay the same taxes as the rich man who lives in Southampton?
In the Hamptons, yeah.
In the Hamptons.
Well, for the simple fact is that the rich man has produced more.
In what way?
He's the one who owns industries, invests in companies. He generates the wealth and the jobs and the production that provides the goods and services to the society.
So the poor man in Baintown, in Nassau, right over the hill here, should pay the same taxes as the man in Lyford Key?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. The fact is, those who are classified as the rich in the United States pay the majority of the taxes collected by government. Because they earn the most, they also pay the most. Merely because your tax rate may be lower, the absolute number of dollars you pay may be significantly greater than the low-income individual. The rich pay a far larger percentage of total taxes collected than any people in other group in low-income brackets.
Doctor, you know, fuel, energy.
Yes.
Exxon made $11 billion last
profits.
Right.
Last quarter. Exxon writes off huge millions of dollars in taxes because it is operating in Saudi Arabia and it is avoiding double taxation.
Why should it be taxed double?
Yeah, but they're making money off the backs of Americans.
They're not making money off the backs of Americans. The presumption is that you think this money just is put on top of some real cost. It's not. The fact is, the major oil companies do not own the oil around the world. They're owned by these governments who have nationalized them. The oil under the ground in Saudi Arabia is owned by Saudi Arabia. What American oil and European oil companies do is they act as outsourcers who do the drilling and do the refining and the distribution. And as far as the billions of dollars they made, well, if the money was taxed away, where will the money come from for Exxon or other companies now to do new exploration, new drilling, new building of refineries, expansion of pipelines? If you tax away all of their profits, how do they increase the supplies and the refining capacity in the future?
Yeah, but Dr. Ebeling, how can Exxon make $11 billion in the first quarter of the year, while the price of gasoline in the United States is about $4, increasing by the day, and it's increasing in the Bahamas? It's $5, and last time I checked, 23 cents.
In some islands, it's up to 6 or 7.
And you make $11 billion in the first 4 months.
What would you want them to do?
to lower the price of gasoline.
And so what happens to the incentive for any further expansion of exploration and drilling so the supplies can increase in the future? Where's that money to come from if you extract the profits away from them?
You can lower the price of gasoline and still make the profit to do what you are suggesting.
Well, how much is a reasonable profit, and who decides that?
The society?
Who's the society? You're talking about politicians and special interest groups. Don't talk about society. It doesn't exist. It's a little metaphor we use to talk about things in general. What you're talking about is special interest groups who want to plunder other people of their wealth. That's what the common good is usually defined as.
So you believe in capitalism in the extreme?
Thank you, yes.
Yes, so that people can be fleeced, and people can be used.
First of all, how are people used in the marketplace? I go into the store and I put some money down and I buy a copy of your newspaper. You know why I pay for a copy of your newspaper? Because I want the information that possibly you can give me that day. I value your newspaper more than the price I pay for it. And you happily sell a copy of your newspaper because you value the money from selling it to me more than keep on a copy of your paper. We both have gained from the trade. If you raise the price of your newspaper enough that I have to think twice as to whether I think the news for that day is worth it, then you don't make the sale. That's the market. It's supply and demand and a price that both sides of the market agree. Are you exploiting and harming the people who buy your newspaper? Couldn't you sell your newspaper for less and still make a profit?
No, but the Christian ethic is that I shouldn't use people. And what you are saying runs counter to the Christian ethic. Now, if you don't believe in the Christian ethic, that's another thing. But if I'm using you and fleecing you and exploiting you, then that is wrong, isn't it?
There is nothing exploitive or fleecing when people buy and sell in the market. Are you fleecing? Are you selling your newspaper at cost? No. You're making a profit. Are you fleecing your readers?
A reasonable profit.
Who defined it? There could be people who think that you're making too much profit. How do you know it's reasonable? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this is the same argument.
Because you have a conscience. And the oil companies are charging unconscionable rates and fees.
I don't know what unconscionable means.
Well, if you're making $11 billion in the first 3 months of the year, you don't think that in profit, after you pay all of your expenses, you make $11 billion, and you don't think that that is unreasonable?
Absolutely not. When you figure that if you look over the last 2 or 3 years, some of those oil companies made huge losses. So here are some profits that are counterbalancing losses that they had in other quarters or other halves of the year.
So would you be happy paying $5 for a gallon of gasoline in Michigan?
Let me put it this way. If the rise in the price and the profit motive that it generates creates enough incentive so that people go out and explore and find alternatives to Libyan oil, to Iraqi oil, to Saudi oil, and so that looking down 2 or 3 years down the road, oil prices can come down because the profit opportunity created the incentives to expand the supply, yes, because that's the way the market is supposed to work.
You see, this is the age of technology, and the man in Michigan now, he can see Professor Ebeling saying in the Bahamas that he'll be happy to pay $5 a gallon.
I'm saying is that if that is the market price, that is the market price.
Dr. Ebeling,
okay.
You said you lectured to the College of the Bahamas students on environmental policy.
Yes.
But what do you tell the fishermen in Louisiana whose marine resources have been destroyed by the oil company, right? And this fellow has a family, has a mortgage on his house and his boat, and his income is gone.
What you say is that if you can demonstrate that the British petroleum spill damaged the property of those individuals, the same way as if I throw my garbage over the fence into your backyard and therefore do damage to your property, legally I am required to compensate, clean up, and stop doing it. The same thing applies in this case. If BP, in fact, through its spillage, harmed the property of these people, then they owe compensation to that the same way if I damage your property by throwing the garbage into your yard over the fence from mine.
Okay, I have to take a break.
Okay.
This is the platform, and we have Dr. Richard Ebeling from Northwood University as our guest on the program today. You're going to have a rough ride in the last part of this.
Hey, no problem.
Okay, we'll take this break.
No problem.
We'll take this break. We'll come right back.